Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome back to Mean Streets, where it turns out I've been neglecting another function of the game, and that is Lee. I've always been calling this Secretary, but I don't think I've ever called Lee, whoever that person is. Oh, hello.
What do you need, Murphy?
Tell me about Karolinsky?
Sorry, can't help you.
So apparently she is here to provide
Sorry, can't help you.
select information that Vanessa can't. So in this case, I will have to ask Lee about John Klaus
Make me an offer.
and pay her, which is a little bit unexpected since I don't even know who she is.
Look for my facts.
And then let's ask her about... Is this going to take 2 minutes and 25 seconds in real time? Sonny Fletcher?
Make me an offer.
Let's see.
Look for my facts.
And I'm also supposed to ask about J. Saint Gideon.
Make me an offer. Look for my facts.
Also, I'm not entirely sure how she judges the worth of each individual piece of information, but apparently there are of different worth, different values. Do you have anything about Sylvia Linsky?
Sorry, can't help you.
Sandra Larson? Or is she just there...
Sorry, can't help you.
Or is she just kind of there for the people that
Sorry, can't help you.
that are off the grid? In that case, I probably should have asked her about Robert Knotts. Oh, hello. That was fast. Her faxes come instantaneously. Talk to Dolores Lightbody. She might know where to find John Klaus. Okay. There we go. So Dolores Lightbody also knows... Okay, this pen has died. Do I have another pen? I do. John Klaus. Ah, jeez. My desk was not made for all this other stuff and papers. So I need to talk to Dolores Lightbody again. The woman with a face like a Saint Bernard. Jason Gideon's address. Oh. Is nav code 3891. And lastly, Sonny Fletcher stays at some rundown apartment in LA. Try nav code 5170. Okay. I was trying to find where on my notes... I might have to actually take time outside of these recordings to compile my notes so that it's on fewer sheets of paper. Yeah. Okay. And now let's go back to Cal Davis's lab, hopefully for the last time. But even though I still have said walkthrough attached, it is still important to save my game, because who knows? I might very easily screw up. Like, apparently... there is a bar at the bottom right. Actually, let's move the rat cages, because that's a function that I keep forgetting about. Rat cages... nope. Electrical circuit box, what can you... your suggestion sounds demented? The large switch says on-off. The switch turns off the surveillance equipment. Alright. And that allows me to pick up a key. If only I bothered looking at the key, because then I would know what the key is for. File cabinet. Oh, I already did that. So it's probably a key for the desk cabinet, if I had to guess. Is it a key for the drawer or for the... it is not a key for the drawer. It might be for the wall cabinet then. It is. And I got some gallium arsenide. Gallium arsenide bars for microchip development. Street value is $2,000. Also, who am I actually supposed to sell these things to? Okay, so I'm done here for now. And first, let's head over to, what's his name? Aaron Sternwood. Because I have an additional question for him. Okay, so back on the beach. Quite the sight. He's got a pretty long cigar animation, considering nothing's happening. Supposed to ask about Nexus. Cal David had a pass card for his Nexus computer. He kept it in a small box near the ape cage. Oh. So basically, I need to somehow get that box out from underneath that ape. Alright. Let's see what Dolores Lightbody has to say about John Klaus, since now we know that they know each other. Carl and John Klaus were partners once. I was dating John at the time, but when I met Carl, I fell head over heels in love with the little cutie. When I told John, he flew into a rage and vowed to never to work with Carl again. I see him from time to time, but lately he's been acting very strange. He believes he's in danger. He's hiding out in Reno, Nevada right now. Use nav code 7012. Also, considering the fact that she left John for Carl, can she really blame Carl for leaving her for Sandra? Alright, and now let's see what John Klaus has to say. I arrive in Reno at a small office complex. The building is fairly new, being designed in the post-nuclear period. As I walk in, I see a gray-haired man about 50 sitting at a large table. Professor Klaus. The man looks up with a shocked look. How do you find me? He says. It's my business finding people. I give him my credentials and background on the Linsky case. Carl Linsky? Carl and I used to work together, but we had a falling out over Miss Lightbody. She was my chick, and he took her away. He'd been trying to get in touch with me, but I wouldn't return his calls. I was sorry to hear about his death. Sylvia Linsky? Little Sylvia? She's Carl's daughter. I imagine she's grown up by now. That smile that he has on his face is very awkward in comparison to his dialogue. Overlord. I was told that Overlord was a project designed to enhance an executive's mental capacity and performance. But as the project progressed, I grew suspicious. When I started asking questions, I was threatened. I figured it was time to go underground for a while. Now, something I didn't realize I would be able to ask about were things. So, thankfully the walkthrough is here. So I could be like, pass card? He hands me his green pass card. So now I can add that to my other list. So, green. Now, you'd think that he would just automatically tell you the password. But no, you have to ask. His password is pawn. Now, one thing to note about that list of chess terms is there is more than 8. So there's going to be some terms that aren't going to be used as passcodes. What does he think about Tex Murphy? I'll help you in any way I can. I'm happy to answer your questions. Alright, okay. So now, let's go talk to J. St. Gideon. Gideon's home is a 30-room mansion in Beverly Hills. The place is lavishly furnished. The place is lavishly furnished with a living room and big enough for a swimming pool. I'm ushered into the den. Mr. Gideon is intently studying his chessboard. He seems oblivious to me. Either that or he's asleep. The guy's old. I mean, ancient. But he must be a big wheel, because there's a picture on the wall of him receiving an award from President Michael J. Fox. I gave him some background information on the Linsky case, and it seems to pique his curiosity. Yeah, he's definitely a lot older in this version than he is in Overseer. I don't recall the name, but if you wanted to talk with me, that would have been impossible. I've been away the past few weeks. I set up the MTC to help improve the management skills of my executives. Shimming never liked the idea, which is why I'm surprised it still exists. I've heard there's something unusual going on at MTC. If there is, I'm sure Shimming is the man behind it. That man is dangerous. So is he trying to turn MTC into something else for his own end? And then Sonny Fletcher has a little bit bigger arc in Overseer. His story gets extended dramatically instead of just being the guy you go up and talk to, as this kind of like washed-up detective who's just trying to redeem himself. The address for Sonny Fletcher is a rundown hotel that has been converted to apartments. I step into the small, seated lobby and find the stairs. The stairwell is dark with garbage and old newspapers strewn everywhere. I find apartment 307 and knock on the door. Fletcher answers with the disposition of an untipped waiter. I tell him I'm working for Sylvia Linsky, and he tells me to come inside. The room is cramped and confining. The furniture is cheap, and the upholstery is threadbare. A portable black and white TV is on a small TV, blaring the sound of lifestyles of the incredibly rich, lucky, healthy, and famous. Wow, he looks terrible. Carl Linsky? Got nothing to say. Sylvia Linsky? Sandra Larson? Oh, yeah, I have to bribe him. What is my offer? I offer you $500. Linsky hired me to check out a corporation called MTC. He had been hired to do research into increasing a person's mental abilities. As the work progressed, however, he realized they had different intentions. When I started my investigation into MTC, I received threats on my life and was even shot at a few times. I tried to warn the professor, but it was too late. I think they iced him, but I have no idea how they did it. If you want more information on MTC, check with Wanda Peck. Okay. Wanda Peck. Ugh. He needs another bribe. Thanks, buddy. I'll tell you what I know. You'll find her at the San Francisco Chronicle at nav code 4621. Now, I understand like what the game was trying to do, in that they wanted to portray the experience of being a detective. And what does a detective do? A detective detects. They ask questions. They interview suspects. They gather information. I think the tricky thing that makes this game particularly difficult for me in this day and age is knowing what to ask. Because video games themselves are based on a certain set of inputs. There are only so many things you can input, and there are only so many things that are the correct inputs to progress. And without knowing what I can input at what times, like, what informs me other than trial and error, how much a bribe is good for. What informs me other than trial and error, than what a suspect knows about any given person. The only way to find out what I'm supposed to know to ask about, for the most part, is I have to go through that list. There's a pretty short list, relatively speaking. Like, if I'm talking to the insurance salesman, I probably don't need to ask him about J. St. Gideon, for that matter. But that's something, that's a quality of life thing that is adjusted in future games, in that you actually get a list of things that you can ask. Inside the San Francisco Chronicle building, I look for Wanda Peck. I've always thought Wanda was good-looking in a way, far away, but I like Wanda. She's a good source of information. She knows how this city is run. Oh, so I already know her. Let's ask her about Carl Linsky. He was a professor at San Francisco University, killed himself last week. Sylvia Linsky. MTC. It really stands for Management Through Control. The Management Training Center is just a front door for a project called Overlord. Overlord. Yeah, Larry Hammond wanted me to do another name. Larry Hammond. There are a lot of characters mentioned in this game. Larry Hammond wanted to do some research on that. The Overlord project was developed 50 years ago in England. Scientists began work on a mental ability booster. The experiment involved increasing a person's mental capacity by connecting his brain directly to a computer. Several scientists tried the experiment on themselves, and at first it worked. By stimulating untapped areas of the mind, they increased their IQs by 15 to 25%. But they also found they were extremely susceptible to suggestion. Commands given through the computer would be followed without question. The experimentation became more and more radical. Many of the scientists developed severe cases of psychosis. Some committed suicide and others died under mysterious circumstances. Alright, let's ask about Larry Hammond. He is a brilliant computer specialist who has done some work for MTC Corp. He was concerned about some MTC project. Ask a guy named Ron Meat where to find him. Ron Meat. The guy's real paranoid. He never stays in one place for very long. You'll have to check with your sources to find him. And what I probably wouldn't have known to ask her about is the Law and Order Party. Information on these boys is going to cost you. I'm taking a big risk saying anything bad about them. And the price that she requires is $800. Oh, she seems like she's getting very interested in this bribery. They're a pretty bunch of fascists. They started out as a small band of troublemakers about 5 years ago, but they've cultivated a steady following since. Years ago, Robert Knott became the president, and now the party is focusing of their rage. And now the party is focusing of their rage against the mutants. When a murder or robbery is committed, it's immediately blamed on the mutants. The scariest part is that they're becoming a powerful political force. They've got friends in the legislature, mayor's office, and police force. You need to talk to Larry Hammond. Look for Ron Meat to find Larry. And do you know Robert Knott? He's the head of Law and Order Party. He's quite the mystery man. He controls much of the action of the city, but he's hard to find. I don't think he's looking for publicity or notoriety. He wants to control things without actually appearing to do so. Alright, so I gotta write down Ron Meat. And I believe I'm supposed to ask Lee about Ron Meat, because Ron is going to give me the information about Larry Hammond. But anyway, back to what I was saying about having a list of things, like in Under a Killing Moon, in Pandora Directive, in Overseer. When you're talking to people, actually also in Tesla Effect.
What do you need, Murphy?
Maybe in Tesla Effect? I've only played that once, and I don't remember right now for some reason. You're given a checklist of things you can talk to characters about.
Make me an offer.
And you can just go down the checklist. If you need to bribe somebody, like early on in the Pandora Directive.
That seems fair.
You find a possibility of having to bribe your landlord into giving you some information. And it actually designates the value for you. You don't actually have to specify a value and hope it works. If there is an item you can get from a character, like it's just still specified from that checklist. So there's a lot of quality of life improvements in the interrogation setup that went from Mean Streets to Under a Killing Moon even through the franchise. Ron Meat hangs out near Coit Tower. Use navcode 4525. He's a little unpredictable, so watch yourself. It's getting dangerous. Alright, so now that I have Ron Meat's nav code, I don't really need to be an expert to worry about what I need to ask Ron Meat himself. At the base of Coit Tower, I wait for Ron Meat. I finally see him. He has radiation burns over most of his face, but he has a nice eye. Too bad he doesn't have another one to match. I call him over to the side of my speeder. Ron Meat is a Cyclops. Me? Not too good lately. I need to get my eye checked. I probably need a monocle. Okay. Sick it, fish face. It's time to get tough. I get steely-eyed and say that I'll layer out that oversized skull if I don't get the facts now. I slam my fist into his soft, flabby stomach and he buckles over. I then catch his chin with the same... Okay, that's enough, I'll talk. You'll find him in Freaktown at the old warehouse. Okay, I'm expecting there's going to be some combat. 4935. Hey, that's just Coit Tower again. The address I have for the mutant computer specialist, Larry Hammond, is a decaying old warehouse building in the heart of Freaktown. This is where most of the unfortunate individuals live who suffered severe damage from nuclear radiation. Many of their offspring suffered genetic damage resulting in some rather grotesque mutations. Most were treated as outcasts and were forced into this community, away from those not affected. I stepped through a partially open doorway into a large room. I see several large mutants, and none of them look too happy to see me. I'm looking for Larry Hammond, I say, quickly. A fellow steps forward. He is about 30 and looks like he's got a serious grudge against the world. Some people are so ungrateful for extra blessings. At least he was born with all his vital organs inside his body. My name is Larry, and this is my brother Daryl. Feel free to speak in front of him. What can I do for you? Oh, his brother Daryl is the head coming out of his neck. Let's ask about MTC. About a year ago, Tom Griffith, another name. Tom Griffith. The vice president of MTC Corporation hired me to design a computer for the Overlord project. They also wanted 8 access terminals. A colleague of mine, Cal Davis, told me that he had been hired by the MTC Corporation to do research on controlling human behavior through direct brain stimulation. I started asking questions. They told me it was none of my business. When I read that Davis had been killed, I decided to go into hiding. If you're looking for a way to stop Project Overlord, you'll have to get to the main computer and destroy the satellite. To gain access to the destruct sequence, you'll need all 8 passcards and passwords. Each scientist involved with the project has one. My gray passcard was stolen by members of the Law and Order Party. My password is King. To get the rest of the passwords and cards, you'll have to find each of the scientists working on the project. Once you have all the cards, you'll need them to find the computer to use them. I don't know where the main computer is, and other than Cal Davis, I don't know any of the names of the remaining 6 scientists who work on the project. If I were you, I'd okay, hold on a second. So, he has the gray card. I still have to get it. But the password is King. And if I were you, I'd start with the accounting people at Gideon. Jerome Milbourne. Oh my gosh. I think I might actually need to start a new sheet of paper. Let's see. Jerome Milbourne. Ed Bradley. And Arnold Dweeb. They might have names of the people that received checks from the MTC. That sounds pretty useful, because then I would know who the scientists are. Let's ask about Overlord. Is the continuation of a project that was attempted in England 50 years ago and failed. Now with new technology, they are attempting to control the actions of an individual through microchips and satellite transmissions. Let's see, Law and Order. They have those goose-stepping thugs are preparing to move against us, but we'll be ready for them. If they try to run us out, we'll take the whole city with us, not just Freaktown. Okay. Robert Knott. I know he hates freaks and heads the Law and Order Party, but that's about it. When I did work for Gideon, I saw him and Frank Shimming together on occasion, discussing business. Alright. Let's see, there was Tom Griffith was mentioned. He's vice president of MTC. I think he is more responsible for what's going on than Frank Shimming. I met him once before he was president, and he seemed like the type of person who would enjoy pulling the wings off flies. Okay. He looks like a typical accountant. You can find him at navcode 7312. Arnold Dweeb. He knows Gideon Corporation pretty well, but watch him. He's slippery. If he pats you on the back, he's trying to get you to cough up something. Oh yeah, and then he's friends with Cal Davis. He was a colleague of mine, and I don't believe his death was an accident. No, sir, it was likely not. Thank you for watching. Questions, comments, recommendations for something to play next? Comment down below or send it on over to itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. That's itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. So long for now.